To discuss it further now, let's bring in our guests. Here in the studio with me, Zeidon Alkinani, Middle East lecturer at Georgetown University, Middle East politics lecturer at Georgetown University here in Qatar, and in London, Rob Gates-Pinfold, who's a lecturer in international security at King's College London. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to both of you. Lots to unpack here from this speech from the new Supreme Leader of Iran. First of all, Rob, let me come back to you. The fact that this was a written statement read out on state television and not an audio one, as we've been used to from the former Supreme Leader, what does it suggest to you about the security awareness of this new leadership?
Well, I think it's the new leadership trying to prove that they are indeed in charge, that they're visible. Obviously, we saw a lot of criticism of the new Supreme Leader, that he hasn't been seen in public since he was appointed. There was that picture that did the rounds on social media of a cardboard cutout of the Supreme Leader being used. So this is his attempt to show that he is indeed in charge. There was all sorts of rumors about him being wounded. So he's trying to show that, that's not affected him. He's calling the shots. And indeed, in terms of the message, this is very much the repetition of the standard Iranian line here, that they don't have any conflict with the GCC states, whilst they're also striking the GCC states. They don't want to back down. The Straits of Hormuz will stay closed, and US bases in the region have to go. So rather than what the Trump administration might have been hoping for, a kind of change in rhetoric from the new administration or the new Supreme Leader, what we're actually hearing here is very much more of the same. Iran continuing to dig down into its established positions, both in actions and also in rhetoric.
All right. Your thoughts, Zeidon? They clearly don't want to back down, as Rob said there. What did you make of this message, both the internal message to the Iranian people and the one to the outside world?
Well, symbolically, it's a major sign of a fragile position, given that the Supreme Leader's first speech is televised while he's in the country himself. It's also read by someone else.
And not his actual voice, which I thought was quite significant.
His actual voice, right? Which creates a lot of uncertainty about the legitimacy and the ability of the Supreme Leader to stand strong ahead and in front of these challenges ahead of the country. But it also indicates a major drive away from the rhetoric that was presented by the Iranian President Pezeshkian, who was trying to present a potential way of a reconciliation and a contradiction or a challenge to Trump's complete surrender rhetoric, with a potential way of accepting certain conditions that will eventually lead to ceasefire. The rhetoric and the discourse presented by the new Supreme Leader is very resistance-oriented.
Why do you think we're hearing this dual rhetoric within Iran, Zeidon?
These are the dynamics, the variety of dynamics.
Is it a case that there's a divergence in divisions, or is this perhaps also a way to fool the outside world, if you will?
It could be a strategy in that way, but we also knew these divisions that existed between these different power structures and the elitist group in Iran at the hierarchy of the system, and we're expecting those divisions to even be more detrimental today, given that the IRGC is enjoying a very different approach in the war, in contrast to, if you may want to call him a member of the reformist camp, such as Pezeshkian and other members of the Iranian government. This resistance rhetoric also helps the new Supreme Leader to step away and not feeling the responsibility of tapping into discussions regarding economic reforms, state building, and many other fundamental issues that matter to ordinary Iranian citizens who believe that the global sanctions against their country is what led to a lot of these challenges, and just focusing on the militarized aspect or the spreading of the Islamic Revolution.
Rob, your thoughts about this? Do you think there are divisions within the leadership right now? Who is actually, in practical term, driving Iran's war strategy right now? Is it solely the Revolutionary Guard?
Well, there always were divisions in the Iranian leadership, even before this conflict. And we know that when regimes find themselves under existential peril, those divisions, the deck not only has a propensity to be reshuffled in favor of one faction or the other, but those divisions are, of course, exacerbated as the threat becomes more existential in their perceptions. It looks like this war is very much being fought by the Revolutionary Guards at the moment, which is why we see this less than plausible rhetoric, for example, from the Iranian president and the foreign minister, saying that they're not targeting GCC states, they're only targeting US military bases within those countries, something that if you live in any of those countries, you will know has to be taken with more than just a little pinch of salt, I think it's fair to say. So what we're seeing here is that power struggle playing out in real time here. While the IRGC is dictating the war in terms of expanding the war and selection of targets and intensity of targeting, you see from the leadership, for example, the Iranian president, as Zeidon discussed, an attempt to strike a more conciliatory pose. Now, we did hear recently leaks from UAE officials that there might be a breakthrough on the horizon. Well, listening to that speech there, there are no signs of any breakthrough. This is very much a hardening or digging in of Iran's heels here. The degree to which the supreme leader, of course, controls what's going on is very much an open question.
Right. Zeidon, but they were, I mean, even though if the strategy, from what we heard from the Supreme Leader, Rob, is going to stay the same for now with the continuation of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, there was, Zeidon, somewhat of a conciliatory tone towards the countries in this region. He said, the new Supreme Leader, the war against Iran must not affect our relationship with our neighbours. He's clearly trying to appease them a little bit. Will they hear this message?
Well, he's also contradicting himself by claiming that he will continue to target U.S. bases and interests, which are the same U.S. bases and interests that we've witnessed being targeted. One, sure, they have targeted U.S. bases as we see them in previous days, but it also included attacks against civilian areas and infrastructure. So if not claiming and admitting that they did target civilian infrastructure, even if it was unintentional, then it means we will continue to witness an existential target against the security, the national security of the GCC states and their societies.
Okay, what do you make of this contradictory message, Rob?
Well, I would say it can be a few things. First of all, it can be the Iranian regime's attempt to basically paper over what they're doing, say that actually, we're not doing this. So the political leadership who are saying these things are complicit. It could also be an admission that they have lost command and control, that even if, for example, they say we didn't target Oman, when they did target Oman, that's because they didn't give the order to do so, i.e. there are various parts of the Iranian military, particularly the IRGC, who are now operating relatively independently, something that, which is very likely given the fact that Iran's command and control has been hit significantly in this conflict. And the other possibility, of course, is that the IRGC know what the political leadership want and they're ignoring them. They're the ones who are directing this war, determining, as I say, the parameters of the war and determining its intensity.
Okay.
All of those are not good outcomes for Iran's relations with the GCC states going forwards.
Okay. Finally, Zeidon, your thoughts. I mean, the coordinated multi-front pressure by Iran we're seeing right now, not just on military sides as we've seen in this region. What does it suggest about where the war is headed? And from what we've heard from the Supreme Leader now, do you think we're headed for a next phase, another phase of escalation, or perhaps there could be some sort of compromise in the coming days?
Well, we're looking at the speech in parallel to the previous statements by President Trump, and it seems like both sides are insisting on pushing further until they reach a level that they believe is a complete victory from either sides. The presumed assumptions of a possible ceasefire or a pause to the war was mainly based on the economic challenges that all of these countries are facing, including their allies across the world. It seems like these economic statistics and numbers are not enough to push or calm down the egos of both political leaders into pausing or ending this war.
Thank you very much both for your analysis. Rob Gist-Penfold